Good morning, guys. I'm Lowell Henderson. This is Simply Fishing, and appreciate you tuning in this morning. I'd like to invite you to tag along as I go on a fishing trip on a lake I haven't been on in a while, and we're gonna see if we can catch a few bass. Stick around. Be right back. Let's see what we can do. Easy, buddy. All right, guys. This little fella came on the very first cast, and let me get my little hook. It's not in there very strong, it's just sideways. Little fella. Don't know what I did with my pliers, but it looks like he's got a humongous crawfish in his gullet. That's good to know. We're gonna throw a jig and a worm to get started. He hit a 8-inch Creme Scoundrel and a pumpkin chartreuse. So we're gonna keep throwing it for a little while, see if that produces another couple. All right. Well, guys, been about 5 minutes and I picked up a second little small bass. What I'm doing is I'm throwing this worm and I'm working the edges of the weeds this morning to start with. And they haven't been in the weeds, but they've been close to them, 2 or 3 feet off of the outside edge. Both bites same way, and they're that's where they should be. Bass should be shallow. This water is dropping in temperature just a little bit. It's early fall here in Alabama. Well, everywhere it's early fall, but it's cooled off a little. It is very pleasant outside right now. It was long sleeve weather when I first got up, and but by the time I got to the lake and got my kayak rigged out and ready to go to the water, it was already too hot for long sleeves, so that had to go. So here we are fishing the beautiful Alabama sun on a Saturday morning with some of the most comfortable weather that's been in months. And it is absolutely beautiful out here. Well, guys, I've been working the shade this morning before it eventually will run out as midday gets here, and this is my 3rd or 4th little largemouth this morning. Working the shade close to the weeds. Of course, now the edge of the weeds, I'm sitting in 4 to 6 feet of water, so the weeds coming out, they have good depth. Water temp in this sunny section here is 72 degrees. Back in the pocket I just came out of, it was 69 degrees. So these fish they're feeling it. Fall is here, and you should be able to come fishing now and catch fish shallow and just really have a good time for a little while. The edges of the weeds for me is always a great starting point. I know during the fall fish begin to move shallow, they begin to move back up in the creeks chasing shad, but You know, kayak fishing, I can't run a lot of times as far as I'd like to run to go up a main creek or get to somewhere. So I fish the areas that are available to me, and I kind of break them down smaller. Kind of like if you were fishing a farm pond, I would look at it in the summertime. I would want to start off the dam where the water's deeper. Well, in a particular area in the fall, I want to look for pockets that run back off the channel a little bit. The bigger the pockets for me, the better. As long as they still got a little water depth. If they've got cover, like the weeds, a lot of laydowns, that's even better, because those are targets that I want to work. And so far this morning, it's paid off with 3 largemouth so far. So we're gonna keep going. I have broke out of the shade. It is after 11. It's like 11:10, 11:15. It's hard for me to see. I'm getting old. So the sun's getting up overhead, so most of my shade now will strictly be, if I find a good laydown, there'll be some shade under that. Otherwise, it'll have to be pockets, edges of the grass. That's going to be my targets. So, hey, I've thrown my spinnerbait just a little bit this morning along some of these edges, and nothing going on with the spinnerbait yet. Probably a few more weeks and that spinnerbait will turn on. The 8-inch pumpkin worm has been the bites this morning. I hadn't even picked up my jig yet. I get a little closer midday. I'll get that jig going. Every log I get to, I'll start putting that jig in there and see if I can't get a big bite. Right now I'm gonna paddle on down. I got a lay down coming up, and we'll see what happens. Gotta do a little paddling to get there though. I'll see you in a few. Right in the shade. Man, that would be awesome. Deep. Oh no! And I missed him. I made the greatest cast. And I let him off. Well, maybe he's got a friend. I thought to myself, man, that was the perfect spot. There's a tree coming out, there's shade in the water, sitting in 10, 12 feet deep. Boom. He ran out toward the middle and got off. That was one of them I wasn't sure about. When you're not sure if you got a fish on there, set the hook. Don't cost you a dime. Hook sets are free. Take them when you think you need them. Well guys, my bites are still coming on the 8-inch worm. I have thrown the spinnerbait a little bit. The wind comes and goes today. It'll ramp up to 5 or 6 miles an hour and ripple the water up. And if I'm in an area where there's vegetation or a lay down or a shady patch and I can put that spinnerbait in there, I'm doing that. And I've had a couple of bites and both of them shook the bait off. My hook's sharp. Just one of those things I didn't hook up. But those are the only 2 spinnerbait bites. And I don't really care to throw it when the water's basically calm. There's not a lot of activity. There's not a lot of shad activity going on. I've seen some shad deep, 10, 15 feet, 20 feet deep on the depth finder. So those fish are deeper than what I'm fishing today. That's a different that's for a different day. I'm looking for shallow fish, and right now the Texas rig worm has been the ticket. More bite, 3 fish, 3, 4 fish maybe. Quite a few bites. I've missed a few. And like I said, 2 bites on the spinnerbait when the wind was blowing pretty good, and then right now it's kind of calm again, so I put that back up for a little bit. And 8 to, anywhere from 6, 7, 8 feet deep, that's where my bites have been today. I talked to a friend out here that he was doing something completely different. He's targeting wood, and it's just hard for me to run up the lake and hunt wood. I'm headed that way, but there's so many grassy areas that have always held fish, and they seem to hold fish now. My hook sets this morning, I believe, have been a little off, and I've had probably all total 8 or 10 bites, and only put 3 or 4 fish in the boat, so part of that's on me. The fish are in the areas. The bite is slow. They're not everywhere. The little shady patches, now that we're in midday, we're at, it's 1 o'clock nearly. So the only shade is where the trees happen to make a little patch, and those areas seem to have a fish or two. You just got to hook up when you get that bite. You got to catch them, and I have missed out on some this morning. Missed out on one perfect cast back down the bank that, man, I knew when I cast that should be a bite right there, and he bit and I missed him. And that is one of those deals that hurts your feelings. You just knew it was on a steep bank, a shady patch, on a grassy point, and should have been something there. And there was, and I let him get off. It's one of those things. That's okay. We got plenty more targets to throw at, and many more fish in this lake. And if nothing else, it is still a gorgeous day, bluebird day. But man, it's beautiful out here. That squirrel up there in the bushes is mad at me for some reason. Guys, I found me a really nice shady spot. I wouldn't have been this close up in it, but I got hung. When I got done getting my bait back, I was in the shade, and there's still a shade down this bank, so we're gonna see if there's a fish out in front of us. I know there's a squirrel. He is really mad. I interrupted his day. There's one. I don't think he's going to be very big, unless he's just flat out running too. No, he's not very big, but I think he kind of told off on himself. There was a big splash out in front of me, and I was about to pick my worm back up. The wind rippled a little bit out just for a few minutes. He jumped, or a fish jumped, and it looked like bait fish scattered, and boom, threw the spinnerbait for a second and got a hold of one. Middle of the day. Always be aware of your surroundings. If the fish will let us know what to do. Now, I don't know if there's any more. I think that fish just kind of showed himself, let me know where he was, and because there is no activity whatsoever actually going on at the moment. I think he just pushed up into one little school and went after him and stayed in the area for a minute. But I'm gonna go ahead and work down this bank a little ways just to make sure I don't miss anything else hanging out in the shade. The wind is really not doing a lot. You don't have to have wind to catch fish on a spinnerbait, but it sure does help a lot. There's a lot of weeds in the area. Now, and I'm back in the shade, so there could be fish. Oh. Now the wind's gonna blow a little bit. I'm gonna make my way down to this next little weedy patch. It's in the shade. And run this blade past it. The wind just comes for a minute and it's gone. It lays back down flat. And you kind of have to take that opportunity to make your cast when that wind's present. Gets that water rippled up, and that's when you get the most. To me, that's when I get the most fish on spinnerbait. When you got that ripple on the water. I saw another little fish bust ahead of me now, so maybe things are changing a little bit. Make my way. Now I'm in the wind now. It'll probably pick up on my microphone. Get up this way and make a couple of casts before it gets me out of position and hope for the best. Make that spinnerbait bust the top of the water every now and then. Let them know, hey, there's something up here. Easy, buddy. Easy. Trying to get me. Well, guys, I've managed another little dink. Give me my hook. I swapped the colors of worms. I got me a darker green worm with some gold flake. I'm not sure of the name, I didn't look. Another little largemouth. And once again, my fish all today have been on the edges of the grass. I think I said earlier, I think I did. A friend of mine was out here, he was catching fish on wood. And I have not been fortunate catch fish off of laydowns or brush piles, or mine have all been on the edges of the grass line, and that may be a part of why I'm catching catching smaller fish. The bigger fish may be holding out deeper on bigger solid structure, and these little fish are hanging in the grass. But I'll take a bite. I don't care. I'm not in a tournament. I'm just looking to get a bite, and I've had quite a few. I've lost more fish, I think, than I've actually got in the boat today. Oh man, that was a fish. I thought I pulled it across a limb. I am on a tree now. I'm in a tree, I think. But he pulled down on it. Man. That's the way my day's been. I've had quite a few bites that I didn't produce. So every time I get busy with getting a bite, the wind gets me out of position. That's part of fishing. Deal with the wind. And every bite has been in the shade. I am a big deal. Let me start that over. I'm a big believer in fishing the shade. It's an automatic security blanket for a bass. They can hide or feel hid. They can run out of the shade into the lighter areas and grab bait fish. They can hide from bigger fish. And in the summer, the water's cooler. Although that's not a problem today. Our water here is dropping. This morning the water was in the 60s. It's back up about 75 right where I'm at. But that's good. That's good water temp. 75. Bass are quite comfortable in 75-degree water. Now that looked like a really good spot. Weeds coming out. There he goes. Oh my goodness. I can almost call the shots I'm gonna miss. Another thing that could be happening as well is I know brim are up shallow. I could be getting brim grabbing my worm, running off with it, but I've had a lot of bites today. But they're not shaking it like brim. When you feel a brim, usually these, I feel like quite a few of these have been actual bass bites. A lot of times when you hook a brim, you feel like you got a little machine gun on the end. None of these have really felt like that. But they're in an area that could hold brim, so can't rule it out. So I got in 2 or 3 casts. I got to move back up, reposition. You always want to stay in position. Line up with your target the best way that you feel like those fish are positioned, either on cover, parallel the weed bed, or across a certain shady spot. It pays to keep yourself in the right position to make the right cast. Trying to cast sideways and back over your shoulder, and all, I've seen all kinds of that junk. All that does is let you lose fish. It's better to reposition. Oh man, there was one. See if he's got a friend. But anytime you can just take a minute and position your boat, or even as a bank fisherman, if you set yourself up to make a cast the right way, your chances of success are a lot better than just throwing anywhere and everywhere. What's up, guys? It has been a long day for me. 3 or 4 bass in the, well, 3 or 4 bass on camera. Had a couple while I was working my way back down toward the truck. Kind of unexpected, so I thought I might better go ahead and turn the camera back on. It's been a tough stretch for the last couple hours, but it seems like as it gets closer toward dark, one of my favorite baits, a little spinner bait, has caught me a couple out of the edge of the grass. I was mainly just killing time, working my way back to the truck, and I got a hold of one. Little small bass, about like I'd caught this morning. And then I got a hold of a big one. And I thought, man, yeah, this is gonna be great. And I let him get off right at the boat. Just wasn't hooked good. But all my fish today, earlier, came on 8-inch straight tail worm, regular Creme Scoundrel. I think I got one on a Zoom trick worm. Usually I use Creme products, but I've still got a lot of leftover baits, and sometimes people give me baits and they kind of all end up in the same bag sometimes. So, but anyway, all of my fish today have been on the edge of the grass line. I've fished points, main points, secondary points, and just not done very well. I had a buddy out here, caught some fish off of wood this morning. That just did not play. That wasn't in the cards for me today, evidently, because I tried fishing laydowns, I tried fishing wood that's off the bank, and I just didn't ever get a bite. So that may have been a morning thing, but up in the day, I got a lot of bites. I still kept getting bites off of the grass edges. A lot of that could have been bluegill, brim. I did see a couple of bluegill and brim chase my bait back in a few times as I was reeling up, so I know I was in the area. But that is kind of a recap on the day. Probably had 10 or 12 bites for the day. It was a slow day. Put 3 or 4, I think, on camera. Nothing spectacular, but man, what a beautiful day it was. And with any luck, I might get a hold of one more as we've headed to the truck. But either way, it's been fantastic. Beautiful, beautiful day. There's been like 1 or 2 boats other than myself out on the lake and my buddy, and so pretty much had the little old lake to myself, which is always peaceful and relaxing. Man, thought I had one blow at it right there. It seems like this spinnerbait in the evenings, I'm not getting a bite unless I reel it real fast, lift it up to where those blades kick out of the water like a bait fish fleeing from a predator, and get their attention, and then it'll get hit. Or I have to run it right through a mat of grass, and then it'll get hit. Either way, they seem to be tight to cover, which that's the way it is. The bluebird skies today, bright sunshine, they should be tight to cover. Probably I could have punched some of this grass that's all around this lake, and probably caught a few punching. Really, we didn't come prepared for that. I know the bluegill have been popping. I know they've been very active. You could hear them all day. Somebody that bluegill brim fishes, man, they're wearing it out right now. Just hadn't seen any shad schooling today. One of my fish that I did catch was a fish that actually jumped up near the grass, showed himself. I threw in there and pretty much caught him. And but man, there just wasn't a lot of activity on top of the water today. Just one of those things. Fall fishing, it gets frustrating sometimes, but if you go home and you didn't skunk and you didn't zero, you've had a good day. And I think I could just as easily come back tomorrow and search for fish in the same places and still put some in the boat doing exactly the same thing. The only thing I would do different would maybe get here earlier. I didn't really get here for the morning bite, so I probably missed out on a lot of bites. And in the fall, late summer, fall, that can be a big deal. But man, I'm glad you guys tuned in. I'm glad you regulars will watch this channel all the time. I appreciate you guys so much. Share it with your friends. If you find value in the channel at all and what I do, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and get me put out in more places, and trying to grow is what we're all about. So until next week, I'm gonna hang it up for today, head to the truck, go eat some supper, and you guys stay safe out on the water. I'm Lowell Henderson. This is Simply Fishing. I'll see you guys next time.